Good morning. It is Tuesday, September the 3rd, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. I'm Ron, your host, and I'm the only true conservative in the United States today because I'm the only one who makes the presumption for the status quo. My podcast is about demonstrating how to beat the left each and every day. My podcast is made possible by Spreaker.com. It can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. My email address is storytimes@hotmail.com. I'm on Twitter @RonaldHardgrove and on Facebook @The Drill. I started my socio-political odyssey as a conservative Republican. I was taught by the left that I was a conservative because of where I stood on the issues, which sounded reasonable, but whenever I engaged a liberal in debate, I couldn't win. It wasn't until recently that I figured out that I couldn't win because I couldn't be taken seriously. I talked conservative, but I acted left. I used lefty lingo. I dressed like the left. I engaged in petty vice and associated with people who engaged in vice, people who used drugs, gambled, consorted with prostitutes, stole, and cheated. It was no wonder that the people around me didn't take me seriously. So I realized that defeating the liberals/socialists starts with getting my act together by talking, dressing, and acting conservative, by being aware of and resisting left-wing counterculture. By becoming a true conservative, I will not only win, I will never lose. The purpose of my broadcast is to demonstrate how to defeat the left each and every day. Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about Comrade Glenn Beck's response to the Texas mass shooting over the weekend. I'm also going to read from the books Hurricane Survival Guide and How to Survive a Mass Shooting. All that when I get back. Thank you. Glenn Beck returned from vacation today, and I was listening to his show this morning. And Mr. Beck started a monologue about the mass murders that happened over the weekend in Texas. Mr. Beck lamented the shootings and asked the NPR pussy talk question, "What is happening to us?" Since he failed to define his terms, I had to assume that by us, he meant American society as a whole. Shame on him. You and I had nothing to do with this crime. Neither did anyone else in our society except the now dead perpetrator. By the way, thank God that the shooter is dead. Good riddance to bad rubbish, and I hope that he rots in hell. He doesn't even deserve a decent burial. He deserves to be cremated where he died. Just spray his body with lighter fluid and throw a match on him. Then take a push broom and sweep his remains into a garbage truck. The trend of mass murdering is the fault of Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, the stormtroopers on The View, and all other Nazis and fascists who tell us not to judge. If we judged these scumbags and did so publicly, mass murdering would lose its appeal. When Glenn Beck refuses to judge the shooter, he acts like a socialist. And when Comrade Beck acts like a socialist, he is a socialist. When I get back, Hurricane Survival Guide. Thank you very much. I'm now going to be reading from the book Hurricane Survival Guide by John Smith. This book contains the lessons learned about what you really need during those first few weeks after a major hurricane devastates your community. First off, if the hurricane is a Category 3 or higher, you should evacuate. It's not that you can't survive it, but it will be unpleasant for weeks to months after a major hurricane. There could be no power, water, cable, or internet. If you're in the projected cone, assume the worst. Make contact with friends and family who live elsewhere, as they will be your lifeline to the real world. Electronic messaging may be the only way to communicate after the storm. Go buy a few burner phones from the opposite carrier from what you have. And that was Hurricane Survival Guide by John Smith. And when I get back, I'm going to be reading How to Survive a Mass Shooting. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to be reading from the book called How to Survive a Mass Shooting by Walter Hebrew. Let's see, here we go. This little work is about how to survive a mass shooting. Taking steps listed in this book may help save a life. There are no guarantees that accompanies this information, but providing this information will help a person think about how to survive if ever in a situation where mass shooting occurs. Avoidance of mass crowds, events, and situations is primary if you want to prevent being in a mass shooting situation. However, if you must be among the masses, there are particular things you can do in order to enhance your chances of survival. The perspective herein is one that derives from a mid to large size inner city upbringing in the United States where crowd shootings happened often at sporting events, clubs, and parties. Yes, I said often. Eventually, I was able to improve my life and my surroundings and was not subject to such foolish environments. Sometimes the shooting incidents were documented, but many times not. Unbelievably, mass shootings were commonplace in the environment I grew up. So I was able to develop certain aspects that helped me survive that time of my life. What I learned will help many since we are living in an era where mass shootings can happen anywhere and not just the inner city. I would like to share my knowledge in this little work with the hopes that it may save a life. Game night. "Get down, Walter. Get the fuck down," my best friend yelled at me before pushing me to the ground. Gunshots heard in multiples surrounded the outside of a high school football game. The game was over and hundreds of people stood around post-game socializing about the lopsided score before the sounds of fear persisted for a few minutes. On the ground, my heart raced extremely fast as others ran passing by me. It was a pandemonium. There was no warning, no confrontations, and no justifications. It was not a rivalry game or other crazy reason, just gunshots from a car passing by. It was the first time I experienced such a scary incident. Yes, I said scary. It was crazy scary. I was only 15 years old at the time. I can remember begging my folks to let me go to the game. It would be the first time that I had ever gone to an event with my friend by ourselves. For something like a shooting to take place the first time with that responsibility really had an influence on my life. I discussed for days what happened that Saturday with anyone that would listen. Before I knew it, a week had passed, and it was time for another game. My friend asked if I was going, and immediately my survival instincts took over. I was a teenager enamored with the joy of going to school activities and having fun, so worrying about shootings was a very tough thought process on my young mind. What if there's another shooting at the game? Will I be lucky to miss bullets again? How many people are going to the game? Will the school provide more security? How will I escape if somebody starts to shoot? Can I know beforehand if a shooting is going to happen? Is it worth attending? These questions and many others persisted in the mind of a teenager. Innately, survival instincts kicked in. Refusing or not going to events, parties, and activities as a teenager seemed unrealistic at the time. Not knowingly, natural steps on how to survive a mass shooting developed in my mind, and over time, well into adulthood. Those steps matriculated into techniques and ideologies that may help anyone, anywhere, survive a mass shooting. And that was a sample from the book How to Survive a Mass Shooting by Walter Hebrew. Back in a minute. Thank you very much. Who are the true conservatives? They are the people that understand that conservatism is not just political, but cultural as well. They are patriotic people who use common sense. They make judgments, refuse to speculate, speak clearly and definitively, and are not afraid to say no. They are open-minded, asking why rather than why not. They are consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of their existence, unafraid to learn or correct their mistakes. They are normal Americans. And that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.